All right, it's time. Let's do it. AEW WrestleDream 2025, the review by myself. It happened on October 18, 2025, over there at the Chaffetz Center. Arena, not a center. Pardon me, an arena. And I was like, I got to pay attention again. I got to pay attention, make sure that I get the pronunciation right. And I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing it right. Chaffetz. I still go with Chaffetz. I feel like that's what Excalibur said. I could be wrong. Chaffetz Arena in St. Louis, Missouri. A great show. That's the long and short of this review. We're going to go in depth into shit here. But look, if you just wanted to pop in and listen to the first minute or so and get the gist of what Warren thought of the show, it's great. It was a great show. We're going to walk through it. There's going to be a couple of themes as we go along, but one of them being tag team wrestling is back, baby. I would say tag team wrestling was the hero of this pay-per-view because there's a couple of singles matches that happened on this card that were not bad by any sense of the imagination, but maybe didn't quite light the place up. Whereas I thought the three tag team matches that we got on the main card, well, one of them started on the pre-show and then bled into the main card. They were absolutely phenomenal. Now, this is a unique situation here. I said this was one of the themes, and I'm already doing the dive in it. Might as well go, right? Might as well just go with it since I'm already fired up to talk about tag team wrestling here. This is really cool, and I'm not going to lie. This is very, very cool because for a substantial amount of time, it felt like tag team wrestling in AEW was done. That it wasn't interesting anymore. The division felt stale. There was no spark to it. And even the Young Bucks, who are arguably one of the, if not the greatest tag team of all time, seem to have lost their spark. But they are having an absolutely phenomenal 2025. And I feel like this has been elevating the entire division. FTR has been consistently this year one of the best things about AEW, and it's blowing under so many people's radar because they're mostly locked on to Collision, and not a lot of people watch Collision, and that's a shame because FTR truly have been doing remarkable work. The happenstance tag team of Brodido has gone above and beyond any expectations. I don't think anyone expected this pairing to latch on like it did. Love 'em or hate 'em, the Hurt Business are a tremendous addition. Jet Speed are fantastic. It's really been, and I'm sure I'm forgetting, some tag teams along the way here, but there you go. Like it just popped into my mind. Jurassic Express, being back and whatnot. The people seem to have missed the Jurassic Express. They seem to have missed Luchasaurus. They missed Jack Perry, both of them together. They're into it. The tag team division in AEW really does feel revitalized. It feels like we're back in that time period with when AEW was coming together and the Bucks made the promise that this is the promotion where tag team wrestling lives, that you will actually see tag teams in great tag team matches. It didn't feel like that was for the longest time, and I think there's multiple reasons for that. But now it legitimately feels like the opposite, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to focus on a lot of things on this show, and one of the things that will not be heralded because don't get me wrong, there's a lot to talk about on this show, and I can't blame anyone for, the main event, etc. The Mercedes stuff. I can't blame anyone to zero in on that stuff, but I really think that one of the underlying currents of this of this show. In fact, it's not even an underlying, what am I talking about? It's not even an underlying current. It's fact. It's there. It blew up in our faces. 3 of my favorite matches on the show were tag team matches. My match of the show was a tag team match. So, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this is one of the sneaky things that happened. No, this is a real deal thing that took place right before our eyes. The hero of this pay-per-view was tag team wrestling, and no one is going to talk about it. There you go. I'll just look. No one is going to talk about that because they're going to be focused on all the other things that happen. The multiple things that are indeed more that have a bigger propensity to be newsworthy. But when you scratch a little, when you've got your thinking cap on and you're smart, you'll take a look at what happened here and you're like, you know what? The story of this pay-per-view truly is tag team wrestling in AEW just might be back because it was the backbone of this entire show. Look, you want some hot takes? I don't think the Hangman Adam Page Samoa Joe match lived up to any of the 3 tag team matches that was on this show. So that's one thing. Look, I got it out of the way, and we'll talk about it as we go along. But I think another theme of this show is AEW attacking the ingrained sensibilities of pro wrestling fans who have been watching pro wrestling do things a certain way for 2 decades unopposed, and think that there's only one way to do pro wrestling and there's only one way to book things and only one way to do matches. And we'll get into it as we go along. So that might be a more of a case by case basis here, but there were things happening on the show where I'm like, this is completely unique. And these are things that the other guys can't do. And I can't stress this enough, as I talk about multiple times on my weekly AEW Dynamite reviews here on the channel or on the podcast or on the YouTube channel, is what I meant to say, is that the more AEW does things to differentiate itself from WWE, the better. There is... I don't know why people just seem to want this promotion to be akin to what they already know. You should be hoping for a true to form alternative. You should be wishing for something completely different. Doing things that WWE, just by its own nature and how it produces itself and presents itself and puts its shows together, cannot do. And main event aside, the opening, right? The opening. I fucking loved how this show started with FTR and Jet Speed scheduled for the pre-show. But then, we're running out of time. We're 5 minutes in and they're doing 5 minutes to the show, to the end of the pre-show, and they're doing entrances, and I'm like, what the fuck is going to happen here? Is this going to bleed into the pay-per-view? And yes, it did. And that fucking rocked. Did you see what happened? Because I had both on, right? I was ready for this to go on pay-per-view, and then I had on my laptop, I had the pre-show, and I'm watching this bleed into, WrestleDream, and they're doing the full pyro. The match didn't stop, right? The match didn't stop. They didn't do graphics or presentation, and they just started off, and they were like, okay, well, guys, hit the pyro. It's our cue. It's 8 p.m. Eastern. We got to get this shit on the road. Let's go. Cue the pyro. And they're doing the pyro, and the guys are fighting. And what is happening to the audience? The audience are up on their feet, and they are cheering. They're going ballistic because they're like, this is fucking cool. This feels real. This feels organic. This feels like a sporting event where, it might go long because your baseball game goes into extra innings or, extra quarters. You might get, a shootout in hockey, whatever. I mean, that's just how sports are. And if there's this organic, unpredictable aspect of it, right? And when you're able to play around with the formula and just have a little fun with it and throw us a curveball that we were not expecting, like this, then it just feels like spontaneous and like, holy shit, I'm glad I didn't miss a minute of this. I'm glad like the people who tuned in for the pay-per-view are like, wait, what the fuck is going on? And, it's like, the people who don't want to watch the pre-shows, they didn't know what was going on. And I think that's tremendous where they're like, oh shit, I missed something on the pre-show. And then if you're on the pre-show, you're like, oh, if I want to see the rest of this, I got to order the pay-per-view. Okay, well, will an FTR jet speed match convince you, will the result of that match convince you to order a pay-per-view? Probably not. Like in all honesty, probably not. But it does at the very least leave you intrigued if you just watched the pre-show and decided not to watch the rest of the show, which is weird. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm pretty sure that most people who watch the pre-shows end up buying the show regardless, right? I think that's how, that's just me, just off of a gut feeling. But nonetheless, look, the point being is that if you didn't watch the pre-show, you missed out on something. And if you wanted to watch the rest, then you're like, oh, this is actually bleeding into the show. So it's like, at the very least, it gives you the impression that anything can happen. That it's just like oh, well, who knows what else can happen on the show. So maybe you are a little more inclined to drop the money on HBO Max to pick it up. And it's something, and what we need to underscore here, this is something that WWE cannot and will not do. They can't. Like I said, just how they package things, just how they present themselves, they cannot do this. Can you imagine the reaction of their fans if you cut into, introductions? You cut into introductions, which is like 70% of the show for WWE fans. Can you imagine if you cut into that? Unimaginable that you would cut into Triple H's time in the ring to kick off the show. Like that's blasphemous if you do that. So you see what I mean? Like it's 100% something the other guys can't do. So go ahead, do it. Try more things that are not like them and look at the reaction that you get then. People get excited, it's spontaneous, it feels fresh, it feels new, it feels like it belongs to AEW instead of, doing cash-ins. And doing cash-ins and, my guest at this time interviews backstage and stuff like that, which are contract signings, which are WWE coded things that don't belong to AEW. They belong to the House of Sports Entertainment. I thought the start of this show was phenomenal. And the guys, the FTR and Jet Speed, just kept cranking it up. But look, this is not how I'm tackling the review. But it is nonetheless a theme, okay? We are going to talk about this match, but not right now. We're going to do it. We're going to get to it. I'll delve into the match. But since we were talking about themes of the show, and one of the themes is do things that the other guys can't do, well, this is a great example right there, the way they started the show. And there's other stuff on the show as well. Do what the others won't do, can't do, refuse to do, etc. So what about the business of WrestleDream 2025? 6,233 tickets were distributed according to WrestleTix there at the Chaffetz Arena. It's a good little number. They've been doing better business for WrestleDream over the past couple of years. I don't know how good St. Louis is to AEW really. Like I know it's a town that is rooted in pro wrestling history. By golly gee willikers, you were made sure to understand that during the show in one particular circumstance. So I don't know, like it's not a bad number. Don't get me wrong. It's like I'm not saying like this is dog shit. It's actually kind of around the expected attendance for an AEW pay-per-view, which is much higher than what they usually do with their weekly shows. And I mean, it's crazy when you think about it, right? You think like, I think we have to come to a realization here is that AEW is a pay-per-view wrestling company, because I don't understand how they can deliver great pay-per-views like this, right? Like I often like to say, you never bet against an AEW pay-per-view, right? I don't understand how they can consistently, once a month, deliver a pro wrestling show that is good to great, even to excellent, to like, show of the year, one of the greatest shows of all time. Like, they span the gamut of really great shows. When's the last time we truly had a bad AEW pay-per-view? Not a middling one, not a one where you're like, it wasn't, like bad, that you're all like saying, no, this stunk. And yet, the week to week on TV, the Dynamite specifically, you get, you get a little exhausted. It's a little exhausting to watch sometimes. Sometimes you're like, what are we doing here? Like last Wednesday, the Go Home show, which I didn't think was particularly good. I didn't think it was necessarily awful, but I don't think it was good. I think it was carried by a couple of things. But look, I have my review if you want to go listen to it. And the week to week seems to be a lot more difficult to get people buzzing and excited about the show. Whereas this show finishes and there's a ton of shit to talk about. You're buzzing about a few things that you've seen here on the show. You're telling your friends, you're telling your friends, you're jumping into your group chats, you're going into your Discords, you're going on to your message boards, and you're saying this show was great. I had such a great time watching the show. And now you're psyched to watch Dynamite on Wednesday because they've already set up some stuff, the Hurt Business versus the Ops, and you're like, wait a second, what are we doing here? Is there going to be a title change? Are we, now that the Hurt Syndicate are number one contenders, are we, are they going to have multiple belts? And, I'm kind of like, and then Bandito versus Kazuchika Okada, where you're like, okay, there's a couple of ways this can go, but, there seems to be a clear path, but, there is an argument to be made for Bandito winning anyway, you're already looking forward to things. Like, how is Hangman going to react to this beatdown that he had? What's next for Jon Moxley and Darby Allin? Like, they clearly have to move on from this point. So, there's a lot of excitement now. Like, there's a lot of things, the women's tag team brackets, the tournament for the tag team tournament, the women's tag team tournament, the brackets. See, I got to it. I made sense. They're finally gonna reveal the brackets. They're starting off the tournament. Who's gonna be in it? It's like you're buzzing and you're like, okay, let's go. Like this is something that could elevate the whole thing. The weekly shows, the Dynamites week after week. But I it's weird, but I don't have faith that AEW is going to be able to sustain this and is going to get me invested in one or two programs that will lead me to Full Gear, where I'm going to be like, okay, there we go, Full Gear, another great show. Like, I will never bet against the show, even if the build to a show isn't great, or in some circumstances for certain matches is cold as fuck. I will never bet against an AEW pay-per-view. It's because they always end up proving that when it's time for the big time shit, they deliver, and in some circumstances even over deliver. So I don't remember how we got here, just, talking about ticket sales. Oh, yeah, because I was like, yeah, it's okay. Now I remember. Because we were talking about, basically saying like that the main pay-per-views are so much more compelling than the weekly programming, and they really, really are. Like, and I'm not just like projecting hopes and fears upon ye right now. I remember a time when I would watch Dynamite week after week, and at the end of every Dynamite, I'd be feeling pretty much what I'm feeling after watching WrestleDream, slapping my hands together. I'm like, appointment viewing next Wednesday. This fucking rules. And it's been a while. Again, not that the Dynamites aren't good, but they could be so much better when you consider how high level these pay-per-views are. It's what is holding us back on the week to week. What is keeping us from truly going, pardon the pun, all in on just an excellent week to week product. Not just good, great, excellent, because it could. I don't know why we settle for less. It's like pro wrestling fans sometimes are conditioned to that because of 20 years of mediocre booking from one man that has taught us to sort of be apologetic. Well, this week didn't go so great. Oh, well, this week, but this week, this was pretty good. Pretty good doesn't cut it. It could be better. It could be stronger. We know they can because their pay-per-views are excellent, because their pay-per-views rule. If it was just the same vibe as your regular Dynamites and whatnot, then this is what the promotion is. Anyway, enough preamble. Let's dive right in. Let's go right to it. Darby Allin defeats Jon Moxley in the I Quit match. We're going to start by the main event, and we're going to work our way all the way back to the opener. The controversy about the, I don't know if it's controversy, but there was a lot of discourse before the show and then after the show regarding whether or not Hangman and the world title should go on last. Listen, I didn't expend too much time or energy on this when I was previewing the show or thinking about it, because I'm like, look, it's really going to depend, in my opinion, on it'll be a hindsight is 2020 type of thing. Because if I were championing Hangman and Samoa Joe to go on last, let's say last week and the week before we got to the show, I was on stream, I was recording, the reviews, the podcast and whatnot. And I was saying, look, it will be a monumental failure if AEW doesn't put Hangman and Joe in the main event. I'd get to this, to WrestleDream, watch WrestleDream and see how it all plays out. And I would have egg on my face. I would come back and eat crow, where it would be like, no, it was actually a good idea. It was actually an excellent idea because of how the I Quit match ended, which was terrific. I think it was a super smart move to not have Hangman and Joe finish the pay-per-view. I think it would have been. It would have hurt the match tremendously, and you had a great finish regardless with Darby and Mox. Like you couldn't have had a more crowd-pleasing, entertaining, pop-worthy, newsworthy finish than that, and anything after would have been just discarded. Just like, oh man, I mean, we just saw something absolutely. We just sat through an incredibly wild match that had a fantastic final stretch, and you're gonna tell me now I have to watch Hangman and Joe defend the title? Okay, I mean I like it, but I won't like it as much as this, I don't think. So hindsight it's hard to argue. It's hard to say, oh, Hangman and Joe absolutely should have main evented. I don't think you can do that in the way that the I Quit match was structured, particularly for the finish. It doesn't make sense to me. The match itself, look, I don't even know. I don't know how to tackle it, like it, because it's really one of these matches where there's so much wild bullshit happening that it's just like all I can do is give vibes and talk about what happened, because as far as a wrestling match making me feel shit, this made me feel a lot of things. It was tremendous and extremely well worked. And here's the thing that not a lot of people are going to talk about, and really how well worked it was. And I know there's going to be folks who are going to talk about how this was it was a death match and whatnot, and death matches suck and so on and so forth. But the death match elements were included in this environment where not only has there been months of build to get to this point, a very, very good to excellent build on top of that. And the match itself was telling its own story, that the death match elements didn't bother me. They didn't make me feel like this was gratuitous. And you know what I'm talking about. When you see low-level death matches happening out there, particularly on the US Indies, you're like, all right, well, it's just guys throwing themselves into light tubes because, that's what they do. But here it felt purposeful. It felt needed to a degree. The bamboo skewer spot, right, had me cringing and twisting in my chair, and I was like, oh my God, this is But when you look at how the spot was made, like, it was excellently worked. Like, it was perfectly worked. And those who are out there screaming at the top of their lungs and doing some concern trolling, because there's a lot of it, and it's good work to the concern trolls today on this Sunday, because forgot to mention I'm recording this on the day after, October 19. They're just getting worked. I also know that there's a substantial amount of bad faith to it as well, but they're getting worked. Anyone who saw that and thought that this was the most awful thing they had ever seen, we're just getting worked. That means that Mox and Darby did an excellent job convincing people that Mox did indeed tap a bamboo skewer, under Darby's fingernail. And just saying it just gives me the heebie-jeebies, but they just did it really fucking well. They didn't actually do it. They're not completely bonkers, right? And the logic in Mox doing it, the psychology worked, because the whole build for this match specifically was, what's it going to take to make you quit, Darby, and vice versa, John, but John is a heel, but Darby's whole thing is never give up, never say die. I will always consistently fight. That's his thing. So Mox was like, well, I have to think outside the box. I have to be unconventional in what I usually do. So yeah, we're going to torture the boy, and people go, oh, it's so out of, it's distasteful. And so, and here's the thing, like, why is it? And I don't understand, like, this is something that no one is able to answer me in a satisfactory way. The question that I ask then is, why does pro wrestling, which everyone is admitted to knowing is, fixed, right? It's stories, it's performance, it's not actually people really hurting each other, right? At least you're not supposed to when you do it, right? Why is it that every other form of media, of fictional media, can get away with this type of stuff, can get away with doing egregious things or having distasteful characters or stuff like that, they get the pass under the umbrella that it's fiction, but pro wrestling can't seem to. That pro wrestling somehow that despite everyone knowing that pro wrestling is scripted and fixed, despite that, people still hang on to the fact that, oh no, this is real. That they still hang on to a level of reality to it. And that if Jon Moxley has a skewer and he's driving it into Darby Allin's fingernails, under his fingernails, and again, shiver up and down my spine when I say it, that somehow that's real. That's something real that he is doing. Sometimes I wonder, do people know that Tony Soprano is not real? Do they think that this is a documentary? Sometimes I wonder. But that's this is the whole, that's the idea. That's the gist of it. And I'm like, why are we losing our minds over this? Is it because it's live and it's in a ring and because, you don't feel the production behind it as much as you do with a television show or a movie. And that erasure, that safety net where it's like, oh, it's just a movie is removed because it's not just a movie. It's two guys or two gals, doing violent stuff to each other. Why is it that the lines are always blurred in pro wrestling, despite the fact that, no one is truly torturing someone else? Jon Moxley is not really trying to drown Darby Allin, like for a second for the aquarium spot. I myself was kind of like, wow, okay, this is intense. Not something I've seen often in my years of watching pro wrestling. This is pretty crazy. Not gonna lie. It's kind of, it's making me uncomfortable, and I'm okay with that because the heel makes me uncomfortable, right? So then when the hero makes his comeback, especially since you've got, especially since the comeback happens thanks to the sudden appearance of, his greatest ally, one of the greatest baby faces in the history of pro wrestling, reappearing for one moment, swinging his bat to make sure that his boy can get a chance and fight fair here. I'm like, fuck yeah. It makes it all the more sweet. It makes it so incredibly sweeter having Sting show up and Darby beating Mox with a fucking sharpshooter, the Scorpion Deathlock or the Darkness Scorpion, whatever you want to call it. And you see that and you're like, look, pro wrestling has won. Darby didn't beat Mox with, with thumb screws or, didn't put him on the rack. You didn't throw him into an Iron Maiden, He just slapped on a good old fashioned professional wrestling move and got the win. I mean, you can't have a more pro wrestling finish than that. And I thought that was awesome. And it made me look, again, the drowning spot, we're uncomfortable. And you should feel uncomfortable when the bad guys do bad shit. It should make you reevaluate. It should make you go, oh, fuck, this guy's insane. Which makes the finish all the sweeter. Which makes everything so much better. And then Darby overcomes. And then what a visual at the end. Then you've got the water in the ring. You've got the shattered aquarium. That Sting just broke with his bat, just like tap, tap, crash, wanted to make sure that we're not using this shit anymore on my boy. It was phenomenal. I don't know what to say. I love the finish to this, right? And even before the sharpshooter, Darby does the Scorpion Death Drop. He does a coffin drop. Like he's using moves. He's not using goofy shit. He's just like, no, I'm gonna beat you with some real deal stuff. And Jon Moxley, flat on his back. There's a chance there's real glass there because the fucking aquarium was still there. covered in water, just got nailed with some big time finishing moves. His entire crew is gone. He's only got one option. He only has one option, which is to quit. And it's the heel. You know, I've seen people go, oh, Jon Moxley wouldn't quit on that. And I was like, yes, he would. In this persona, he absolutely would. This is the guy, if you don't recall, was reluctant to the, was so reluctant to want to fight Hangman Adam Page for his world championship, at All In, that he was making up lies. He was saying, you can't beat me, you know, in a Texas death match. Hanger, you're a weakling. You cannot beat me when it had already happened. We even had a spot in this match which harkened back to those death matches where Hangman won the matches by choking Mox out over the top turnbuckle, the top rope, I should say, right? Darby does that with the AEW flag, wraps it around his throat, and you can see Mox has the same level of panic. It's the same thing. It's like, oh shit. But here he's able to get out of it thanks to a poke to the eye. But you could see Mox in that circumstance, like, oh shit, I could be fucked here. I'm fucked. He had the panic. It's not that he couldn't be beat. He just had the numbers. He had the people, and he had the depraved insanity to be able to beat the shit out of Darby until he gave up. But he knows deep inside him he doesn't have that same resiliency. Because in the same type of situation, he's given up before. And also in this match, one of the MVPs of this match is Claudio Castagnoli. When he throws Darby over the top rope to land on commentary, that was a precision throw. Like, that is some elite NFL quarterback skills. Like, he could, a few inches, off, and Darby could have really gotten fucking hurt, overshoots it, undershoots it. Claudio landed that throw perfectly. Darby landed exactly where he was supposed to land. It's almost as if Claudio had the auto aim on that one. Unmistakably great throw. For a spot that could have gone horrendously wrong. See, everyone's freaking the fuck out over a worked skewer spot, right? Everyone's going nuts for that. But the table throw, the commentary table throw, could have been so much worse. That was actually dangerous. That was the spot that was legitimately dangerous. Anyway, this was fantastic. I give it 4.5 stars. It was, it's just one of these absolutely wild things that matches, I should say, even it's not just a thing. It's one of these wild matches that only AEW can put on a major league level. I'm talking about. This is something that WWE could never, ever sniff. They could never do it. Ever. Why do you think their crowds of, why the house media and the bad faith actors are all out there burying this match? Because they know WWE cannot do something this fucking cool. That's all. They just can't do something this cool. And they can harp on all they want about how, it's dangerous and, it's disrespectful to wrestling and so on and so forth. Buddies, listen, you have, let's say, Jacob Fatu and Ilya Dragunov pull off one of these matches. I don't know, I'm just pulling two names out of the hat here. And they do this kind of shit where, Fatu has an aquarium and he's trying to drown Ilya Dragunov. There is not one of you assholes the next day who was complaining about how dangerous it is. You are going to be up at the barricade saying how fucking cool it is. Without a doubt. There will be no concern trolling. The only reason they don't like it is because it didn't happen in their promotion of choice. That's all. On the only thing that they watch. That's all. Tremendous finish. I loved how the match finished. Look, I thought this was insane. It was crazy. And I think they did really quickly, because I do want to move on here. We've been talking about this for a while, but I do think that they really did the best out of a situation where they could not use blood. They couldn't use blood because of the State Athletic Commission. The State Athletic Commission, never said anything about drowning a man. You can't bleed. You can't use glass, but aquarium, that's not on the list. Hangman Adam Page retained the AEW Men's World Championship against Samoa Joe in a good match. I thought this was very good, actually. The way this was built, this was the way this was built was essentially, the massive monster of Samoa Joe taking over for the majority of the match, beating the piss out of Hangman, so that Hangman would build his comeback and get the big fiery babyface win, which he did in a match that I wouldn't say they lost the crowd. That would be unfair. I don't think they lost the crowd, but the crowd wasn't all that into it. I think the only problem was that Joe's control segments were a little too long, and maybe Hangman's hope spots weren't as scintillating. Didn't get the crowd into it, because when they did that final exchange where Hangman flat out said, "Come on, motherfucker," that crowd just got up on their feet, and that's what they want out of Hangman. You see, like, this is what we want out of Hangman. I'm gonna throw my hat into this. Fiery, won't take any shit. Just a little dose of real angry top guy Hangman that's not afraid to back down. Everyone, the audience jumped up on their feet and started cheering, and it carried that vibe carried through that final sequence of the match as well. And we got some big near falls, some big moves. You got the counters to the Deadeye and the Kawada kicks and the Tenryu power bomb and then the Kikina clutch sequence, and they're just making their way out of it. Again, this was very good, and the finish, was Hangman doing 3 buckshot lariats after he does a Deadeye first, which is impressive in and about itself, right? Like, respect. And then he does 3 buckshot lariats, because the first 2 that he lands, Joe doesn't even move. Joe doesn't even stumble to a knee or anything. It took the third one to really drop him to flat on his back and for Hangman to get the win. Yeah, listen, I thought this was a very good main event. Very good. A 3 3/4 stars type of main event. I have no issues with it. Wouldn't call it great. Won't go that far, but I thought this was very good. And again, with how things wound up, this is exactly the positioning you needed to do for this card. This was exactly it. I have no qualms here. And then, of course, after the match, you have the angle where Paige and Joe sort of shake hands, and they hug, and the rest of the ops come out to check out to check up on Joe, but they end up turning on Hangman, and then they beat him up. Joe does a muscle buster on Hangman onto the AEW World Championship, and we've got ourselves a heel ops faction, and I'm 100% for this. Look, again, this is something we've talked about a few times on the Dynamite review specifically. There's a void right now with the absence of Swerve, of Ospreay, of MJF that aren't around, and we need to fill it with we need to fill the void. Just as simple as that. We need to fill the void, and AEW right now is a little lacking with really top guy heels Lots of top guy baby faces, but not a lot of top guy heels. Now, am I saying right now that Samoa Joe suddenly is in that pantheon? I think he can be a convincing top guy B-level challenger, sure, but he's not, he's not in the same strata as the guys I just mentioned, and even Mox and Hangman. I'd put, as far as the men go, I'd put Hangman, Mox, MJF, Ospreay, Swerve up on that level, right? There's not a lot of convincing heel B challengers, right? That you can, because the good part with Joe is that you can plug him into that spot and then plug him out and whenever you want. So he can hang around in the mid card and do whatever he needs to do. And then I need to put him up there on the into the main event scene, and it'll work. Like everyone believes that Samoa Joe is a tough guy, right? He's a mean bastard that will just destroy you in an instant. So that aura keeps that alive. Does this make me more convinced that Samoa Joe is going to win the title off of Hangman? No, hell no, absolutely not. There's no way. There's still no way Samoa Joe is taking the title off of Hangman because, of course, this feud must continue, right? We're not quite done here yet. We've got the blood and guts coming up. There might be a lot of, there's a few possibilities for a few setups here. But if Hangman and Joe want to go again and they want to crank it up, maybe they have a better one in them, and I'm absolutely for it. I think they work well together. The Hangman can't have a bad match. I keep telling you this. And Samoa Joe has been around long enough to not have a bad match, to know what to do to not have a bad match. So I don't necessarily have a problem with it. Is this a scintillating feud, challenger? I'm at the same spot that I was previous to this match, where I thought that both guys were able to promo their way into making this match feel special. Outside of last week's Dynamite where they did jack shit with it, I thought this was a well-built match. Now, Samoa Joe, fully heel, angry. I'm like, okay, let's see where this leads us. Plus, the ops following him as well. I think this is going to do wonders for Willie Hobbs. Heel Shibata is fantastic. I don't have any problem with a heel chip on his shoulder Katsuyori Shibata just beating the piss out of people. Yep. I'm absolutely okay with this. But even before we talk about Full Gear and the possibility of Hangman versus Joe at Full Gear, I think we're going to have a little stop at Blood and Guts before that. I think that's going to be the thing that we're going to do before we get to Full Gear. Would I have preferred that Hangman move on to another opponent? Sure, but the other opponents that I'd like him to move on to are not around. So, again, what are we supposed to do in this type of situation? And I think this is really the best possible scenario. We're like, well, let's continue the Joe feud, and Joe, you're going to go full heel on this one, and you're going to beat up the champion, and this feud must continue. I'm completely okay with it. Now, there's the question that what's going to happen this week, on Dynamite, because the Ops are going to face the Hurt Syndicate for the Trios titles, the Hurt Syndicate, who are the number one contenders for the tag team titles. And now you've got the the Ops. Do you want the Ops to lose immediately after their big turn? No. Do you want your number one contenders here to look to drop a match after they just been anointed number one contenders? No, not really. So it's a very interesting. See, when I was saying earlier that I'm like, next week's Dynamite has me vibing because of how good this show was. This is one of the reasons where I'm like, okay, well, this is an outcome that I don't know what they're going to do, and I'm going to be very curious to see what they do decide to do. how they get to that finish and what implications it's going to have moving forward, I'm very, 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 very much looking forward to that trios match next week. Brodito defeated the Don Callis family duo of Kazuchika Okada and Konosuke Takeshita. This was my match of the night, ladies and gentlemen. 4 3/4 stars for me. I thought everyone worked their fucking ass off in this match. I thought Okada was into it. Takeshita was awesome. Bandito was great as well. Brody King was tremendous. Everyone looked great, worked hard. I love that finish. I love the finish. Love the finish. Love the finish. I cannot tell you again just how much I love the fucking finish with Bandito doing the one-arm 21-plex and getting the pin on Okada too. Oh, just brilliant stuff. It was so good. The build to that spot throughout the match was just absolutely remarkable. And then on top of that, you've got Takeshita, who came out with his IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, newly crowned champion there, avoiding to take the pin. Gato and Tony must be talking here. He gets to wheelbarrow suplex Brody King, which is absolutely insane. And Okada in this same final sequence does a beautiful anti-air drop kick, just taking Bandito out of the skies. This match is so good. Like everything connected, everything made sense. Even the little tension between Okada and Takeshita. And it's just referenced enough that we know they don't like each other, but it's not hammered over our heads repeatedly every 2 minutes or so. At some moments they're working as a unit, and at some moment and in another moment, Okada's tagging himself in to keep Okada from doing his running knee because he wants to hit the Rainmaker to get the win, kind of thing. I fucking love this feud. This is, as it stands right now, because probably like myself, you cannot stand, can they get along tag teams, right? Because it's been driven, 7 million miles under the earth via Vince McMahon's lazy booking, right? But this is working. They cannot get along for adults. Because they're not like doing cartoony shit. They're not like trading, giving each other scowls all the time. It's well done. They have the connective tissue of Don Callis, who is trying to keep the peace on commentary, shutting down any talk about how these two guys are not, on the same page and whatnot. And, and ultimately these guys are in the same group together because they're all making money with each other. They're all winning. They're making money. They're all insurance policies, whatever you want, right? This was so good. This was an incredible tag team match. And we had already had previously in the evening 2 incredible tag team matches, but this one was even better. We talked about how great the tag teams were on this fucking show. And Brody King, he's hyping up his boy, because I think that right now, I think there's a part of the story here that not a lot of people are catching, is that the reason Bandito needs to be hyped up by Brody it's because his shoulder is hurt. So Brody is doing his best to make sure his tag team partner is, doesn't give up. And it's like, no, fight through, brother, fight through. And there's a lot of people who are seeing this as Bandito being weak, but they keep telling the story of the shoulder in every match he's been doing since he legitimately hurt his shoulder. And that's the story they've been telling. And I feel like there's some people who didn't pick up on that. And now apparently these are breadcrumbs for a potential turn by Brody King on Bandito. Well, he would turn on Brodito, the team, but specifically on Bandito. And look, this is, if you ask me, this is something you do much further down the line. Probably not right now, because I don't think AEW fans are ready for heel Brody King, I think it's not a good idea. Brody King right now, at least, if you hang out on Blue Sky and whatnot, Brody King is a beloved pro wrestler for his stances, for his political stances right now. The guy comes out with a "fuck ICE" t-shirt on. You are not getting the AEW fan base to turn on Brody King and accept him as a heel when he's going around on social media and showing up to shows with a very strong stance, a very anti-fascist message. Like, it's not going to happen in this context. So I think this is an idea you scrap. It doesn't, like, I don't think AEW fans are going to accept that. They will outright reject it. And why would you? I don't know why we're talking about this. It's just I've been hearing this scuttlebutt more and more, and it just doesn't make sense to me. This is a tag team that works. This is a tag team that organically got itself over. I am convinced that they were not originally planned to be tag team champions, but they decided to go down that route because AEW saw something special here. And I think the team is still very special. And I think it is a great use of Bandito. Because like a lot of people, no, let me say that again. Like some people, I don't think Bandito's a top guy. I'm sorry to say, I don't think he's the shoe-in, singles main eventer guy that a lot of people, I should say, seem to think he is. I think he's a tremendous, upper mid-card dude. I will never complain to sit down and watch a Bandito match, but I don't think he's a main eventer. Not an AEW pay-per-view main eventer. I'm sorry. I don't quite see it. He has some great matches, and the guy's also capable of shitting the bed. He's also capable of being very sloppy. Not necessarily a problem because it doesn't happen all that often, so that's why I don't complain about it. That's why I don't sit here going, Bandito. I think he's tremendous, but not on the same level as other people do. So right now, his tag team with Brody, I think, is probably one of the best ways to use him. And he's coming across as affable. He's developing the crowd connection, the charisma. He's got Brody that it just fucking works. It just works. I don't know why we're talking about splitting up these guys regardless. I know why I'm bringing it up, but I don't know why we're talking about it. I'm bringing it up because I don't know why we're talking about it. Yeah, 4 3/4 stars, an incredible match. Chris Statlander retained the, no, wait, before that, sorry. Well, maybe we should just invert the, we'll just invert here, the order. Since one bleeds into the other, we'll just invert the order here. So bear with me. Chris Statlander defeated Toni Storm to retain the AEW Women's World Championship. I thought this match was terrific. I thought this was a hoot and a holler. These women were landing just the biggest power moves on each other. Just a big, hard-hitting power game. Tony was eating bumps. Statlander was eating bumps. They were striking each other, but mostly just dropping each other. I had so much fun watching this. I thought the final stretch was so good. We're doing the 450s. We're doing the Storm Zeros, and we're kicking out. Even Statlander goes for the seatbelt with which she's been winning matches, right? But Tony manages to find a way to get out of the seatbelt because I thought that was a lock at that point, but it wasn't. It was like, okay, let's go. And people were into it. And I love that final submission hold. I don't remember what Stat calls it, but she's got this this final submission, and Tony's locked into it. And she resists. Tony's like is struggling to get out of it, and it is a struggle, and it's a good struggle. And suddenly like Tony starts talking shit, right? She says, I couldn't quite pick up what she said, but she starts talking shit to Statlander. So Statlander immediately just like slips out of the hold, and transitions into the Saturday Night Fever blam, and then gets the win on Storm. I thought this was an awesome match. I thought like a 4 stars flat. I thought it was good and brutal, and maybe the start of the match was a little soft, didn't quite get the audience involved into it all that much, but I thought like as it progressed, especially towards the end, they were able to rally the crowd. They were able to line everything up. Like the entire like, I don't know, maybe 11, 12 minutes previous to that, where they were just like dropping each other in bomb after bomb after bomb. I thought it was fantastic what they ended up, what the finish ended up being, because it all made sense. It was a really good story and some excellent wrestling too. 4 stars flat on that one. So then after that, as Statlander is celebrating, and celebrating her definitive win over Toni Storm, which of course this is what this match was about, right? In case I'm sorry I didn't go really deep, but sometimes I'm like, well, this is so obvious, but maybe it's not so obvious. So I'm going to make it obvious. This match was designed to establish Chris Statlander as a legitimate champion, world champion who won the title not with a fluke. It wasn't a fluke win, that she was worthy of the title, right? Beating Toni Storm, the champ, before beating her one-on-one, not in the in the 4-way situation. Like, this was 100% designed to get Statlander over on that front, to just quell those questions, right? So she's celebrating the victory at the end of the match. Mercedes Moné's music hits and she comes to the ring, and she's got the frat house carrying all of her titles, and she gets to the ring and she tells Statlander, hit the bricks, sister, get out of my ring. And Statlander's like, okay, all right. And she walks off. And then we get the match where, which was supposed to be a surprise, right? Where it's like open challenge to any champion backstage, right? I hadn't picked up that it had been any champion until, because when I did the preview on Dynamite on Wednesday, she said, I'm going to show up at the pay-per-view, right? And she hadn't alluded to the fact that she was wrestling. So I was like, oh, well, she'll come to the ring, she'll do something, and then the next challenger will show up, type of thing. But then after the CMLL show on Friday, in her match against Persephone, great match, by the way, go check it out. She basically said that it was an open challenge to any champion. I'm like, all right. And a lot of things went through my brain as to who that could be. But Mina Shirakawa was not one of them, especially since Mina Shirakawa is an interim champion. And I think this is laughable. Like, I was like, oh, it's Mina. Wait, isn't she an interim champion? And everyone on Blue Sky said, yes, Warren, you are correct. She is an interim champion. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing here? An interim champion. And listen, an interim champion for a title that, let's be brutally honest here, no one gives a fuck about. The Ring of Honor Women's Television title? Excuse me? No one gives a shit about that belt. And it's the interim belt on top of that. And we're not going to get into the discourse about interim titles. I don't even think there's I don't even think there is discourse. Everyone thinks they fucking suck, right? Who likes interim titles? Raise your hand. No one's raising their hand. I can see you through I can see you through your podcast app and through your YouTube video. I can see. No one's raising, because they stink. And the wrestlers think they stink too. No one likes it, except Tony Khan. He's the only guy who does. Anyway, Mina comes out, her music hits, and I kind of feel like everyone was disappointed. I feel like even the live crowd were like, oh. They were like, waiting with bated breath going, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? And the accordion starts playing. And they go, oh, it's Mina. Now, I get why they did it. I understand why they did this. They wanted to get the interim title. God, let's say the whole fucking thing, Warren. They wanted to get the interim Ring of Honor Women's World Television title. But, they wanted to get the TV title off of Mina so that she'd be free to do the tag team thing with Tony. So I get why they did it. But that doesn't mean that I like it. I don't. It's incredibly lame. There's something really, really fucking funny, something profoundly hilarious about Mercedes Moné beating Ultimo Dragon's record with an interim title. I think that's infinitely funny. I think this is the match that got me the least invested. Like it's not. It may be one of the worst matches of the night. Now, when I say that, I'm still probably around 3.25 stars. So it's not even like a match where you're like, oh, this is disgustingly bad. Maybe 3.5. I don't know. Like, I don't know how to feel about it because the whole setup, the whole promise here felt very disappointing. I don't know why this just wasn't built as build as Mina versus Mercedes. I don't know why we went through the rigmarole of, a potential surprise, or this Mina thing was a plan B because plan A didn't happen. What would have been plan A? Your guess is as good as mine. But I don't think it was a plan B because they clearly wanted to take the title off of Mina so that she would be free to do the tag team thing with Tony. Well, why didn't they just drop the title to someone in Ring of Honor? I agree. Don't get me wrong. I have no issues with that comment right there. I'm just completely okay with it. But look, it continues Mercedes' overarching story, which is, she's a belt collector and the greatest women's wrestler in the world right now. That's the story they're telling. And I am befuddled. I am befuddled, stunned at the resistance that people have towards Mercedes and her belt gimmick right now. Like it just completely floors me, and I don't understand it. I don't understand how people don't like it. I don't know why they're upset. Well, and when I say I don't understand, deep down inside I have theories, right? But until like people truthfully give us the reasons, I can only speculate. Because a lot of people say, we'll give you reasons like, oh, well, it's hurting the indies where she's taking the belt. I'm like, is it really? Is it really? Is it really hurting the indies? That's a very dubious claim to sort of, try to create some shame over someone doing something that you just don't like. And you're trying to give it like this high level concern, this issue. You're trying to create an issue that doesn't exist under the guise that you're concerned about the indies. If you, and 100%, you don't watch the indies where she got her titles from, and it's like, oh, it's bad for CMLL. Why is it bad for CMLL? She just went and defended it on Friday. Had an incredible match with Persephone. She should have dropped it to Persephone. You don't follow CMLL much, do you? Because if you watch CMLL, you'd be like, nah, it's not going to be Persephone. But that's a whole other bag of yarn there. The idea that this is bad somehow absolutely blows my mind. And I've talked about this in the past, right? Where it's like, I bring up I bring up issues like, race, misogyny, and WWE fans who are just absolutely pissed off that she's making a success out of herself after, slamming the door on the Fed and going off to do her own thing. And if anything, she is a bigger star now as Mercedes Moné than she ever was as Sasha Banks. And if anything, she is cementing her place in wrestling history much more than if she hung around with WWE and waited to be cycled out, just like what's happening with Bayley right now. Like the thing that we all forget, I feel, about Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, is that Mercedes Vardano, that's her last name, right? I think so. Is that she's one of us. She's a nerd. She's a wrestling geek. She's one of us. She watches tape. She would not just like sit around and watch, former WWE stuff. She would, yes, of course, it influenced her into becoming a pro wrestler, but she went above and beyond that. Like, she can talk shop. She had been wanting to go wrestle in Japan for years before she left WWE. Like, she understands the game. And she knows what she wants to do. And she puts a lot of pride in her craft. And she's one of us. She's a nerd just like us. You see, she likes to play the part that she's above all of us, but she's playing the part. And somehow people they take this shit too seriously. Just like all the titles she wins. I love it when I hear an argument saying, well, she's making such a big deal out of all these no-name titles that, from little promotions that no one's ever heard of. And then you slap the table and you go, exactly. That's the heat. That's exactly it. She's going around winning titles in little promotions so that she can walk around with a dozen belts or so and call herself the greatest of all time. And on the side, she is becoming the greatest women's wrestler, North American women's wrestler of all time, because throughout it all, the matches that she's having are all good to great, and she's having really good matches with this, even if her opponents aren't, living up to expectations or, living up to their side of the bargain. So, if we had a Mercedes Moné type push happening with a wrestler who was half as talented as she is and would be shitting the bed, right? Or having really average, ordinary matches, and then we'd have something to chew on. Then I myself would probably be here and be going, the fuck is happening? Why this person? Are we still doing this? But Mercedes has been great. She's been great in the ring. She's been great outside of the ring. She's let go of the Jennifer Pepperman promos, where exactly what I'm talking about. And now she's talking like as a pro wrestler, and it feels real when she's talking. She doesn't come across as a phony extraterrestrial that is, like an AI that is learning to speak like a human. Now I feel like she's understood what AEW is about, and I feel like she's found a path for herself that is good for her, and she's living it, she's enjoying it, and it is terrific. But somehow there's an entire category of people who just cannot get behind it. But one category of people that is surprising me that they're not getting behind it are the same people that week after week will tweet at Tony Khan saying, more women's matches, please, right? And I see it. I see these people sort of gritting their teeth, coming up with excuses as to why this isn't good, where it's like, finally, we have a women's wrestler who is having an international generational run that is unprecedented in the history of pro wrestling. Unprecedented. Someone who has truly elevated herself to superstardom. And instead of applauding that, instead of getting behind it, we're crossing our arms and sulking in a corner because Pick your reason. Pick your reason why. And I think it's preposterous. And trust me, I see the people. I see who these people are. I know who these people are. And I see it out there. I don't understand it. And now their concern is that Statlander, because Statlander after Mercedes match returned the favor and went to interrupt her celebration and gives her a Samoan drop, right? So, Statlander was like, okay, fine, goes away when Mercedes says to hit the bricks, but then she returns to interrupt her own celebration, which, is a little comeuppance there, straight up. And this is leading us to Full Gear because Mercedes outright challenges Chris Statlander on the show to fight at Full Gear. And now people are worried, she's going to take that belt too. And so, first of all, even if she does, that's tremendous. Good. That's the big belt that she's missing. It'd be tremendous. And regardless, even if she doesn't, the build to this is so much better because Mercedes is on this incredible run. Because Mercedes has the history of having beaten Statlander twice in recent memory. Now we're circling back to it in this in this new environment where people are going to be worried, legitimately concerned over her winning the title or not, without realizing that they're being worked. You're supposed to go into this match, this Statlander Monet match, worried that Monet is going to take the title off of her, which is proof that this run is working because you're getting worked, because you're getting upset. And instead of getting worried and upset, and instead of formulating reasons as to why this is bad, we should be celebrating this achievement in women's wrestling where it has attracted international attention, where we have a star who is traveling from promotion to promotion, from Japan to Europe to North America. Has she been to South America? I don't even know. But at least been hitting up the big pro wrestling centers of the world on a winning streak, establishing herself as a huge star, collecting all these belts, something that would have been reserved for only a dude in the past. And yet, in this circumstance here, it's not a dude, and somehow this is not a good thing. I'm completely floored. Also, throw in the fact that Vince McMahon has trained an entire generation of pro wrestling fans to believe that 50-50 booking is the only way to do things. So chalk that into the reasons why people are stupid about this. But I personally have attained layers of disdain for people who react this way. Got nothing for them. Anyway, back into our main event to opener order of things. Kyle Fletcher successfully retained the AEW TNT Championship against Mark Briscoe. And this was a hard-hitting match that had some great brawling, spilled onto the floor. Briscoe has this incredible spot where he hits a J driller on the apron, which was fantastic. And he's fighting with all he's got, and he's rallied the audience behind him. The crowd was super into this. He's rallying the audience behind him. It is so good. And both of these guys have been so great throughout this entire match, playing their parts specifically. Playing their parts specifically, yes, but playing their parts with such intensity and greatness, and this incredible build to the end. Briscoe kicks out of the brainbuster, and Fletcher's like, "Oh, what the fuck? What are we gonna do here?" So what he does is that he does the generico corner turnbuckle brainbuster to finally put Mark Briscoe away. So on the preview, we had been talking about how there was really two ways to approach this. There were really two outcomes, and one of them in which I posited, well, are we really going to not have Mark Briscoe win the big one this time? It seemed a little implausible, because then I was like, well, in the circumstance where we're missing a lot of the top guys, just like we talked about a few minutes ago, in the circumstance where we're missing a lot of the top guys, would it not be wise to really have Kyle Fletcher go and take his spot there at the top, which would mean revisiting maybe Hangman and stuff? Maybe it's a little ill-advised right now. But I had trouble thinking of Mark Briscoe not winning the title here. But look, I guess, what do you do then? Is Kyle Fletcher truly losing up if he has no top guys to go fight with, right? I think in another circumstance where maybe, let's say Will Ospreay is free, maybe we could revisit that. If Swerve is free, maybe we could go for that, right? I guess it just wasn't the right moment for Kyle to drop the TNT title, and I believe that. It's like, yes, I believe that ultimately this was a good decision. I don't think Mark Briscoe is harmed in any way, shape, or form, but he's still got to get a singles run at some point. I still sincerely believe that. Anyway, I gave this 4.5 stars. I thought this was awesome. This is so hard hitting and an incredible build. And Mark Briscoe's great, and Kyle Fletcher's great, and they've had an uncelebrated rivalry. Like, this was their 5th match. Just awesome stuff. Just an under-heralded feud here between these two, a little rivalry. Just awesome stuff. The Hurt Syndicate defeated the Demand. I mean, this was, a strong, well wrestled match. I thought it was good overall. Hasn't got me, singing up and down, but I thought Shelton Benjamin was the MVP of this match. If you were to ask me, I think people in AEW really love Shelton Benjamin more than the 2 other goofballs he hangs out with. I think people are really, really into Shelton Benjamin. I think most wrestling fans are into Shelton Benjamin because they always knew Shelton Benjamin was a guy, and there's just one old geezer who never saw it. But he was so good in this one. Great sequences of work. He's fantastic. He's really, really good. Bit of an odd finish where Bishop Khan throws... Well, you see, Ricochet is kind of surrounded by all of the Hurt Syndicate dudes, and Bishop Khan comes in and he throws Ricochet out of the ring so that he'll take the super kicks for him. Or the super kicks, as if, he'll take the beating, which leads to the Bobby Lashley spear and the win. I don't know. It's a bit of a weird finish. I don't know. The Hurt Syndicate are now the number 1 contenders. Is it me, or is Ricochet not as fun anymore since he started teaming up with these 2 goons? And don't get me wrong, I like the Gates of Agony enough, but Ricochet's character for a long time in AEW was just phenomenal viewing week after week. He was so good, just nonstop good. And now it's kind of like, I don't know. It's not as there's something missing. I don't think he's as cool as he was. He's still an excellent worker, but I don't feel like his character, his mannerisms and etc. I don't think it was. I don't think it was as exciting. Anyway, that's it. Maybe a 3.5. Maybe 3.5 or something like that. The Jurassic Express defeated the Young Bucks in the $500,000 match. And boy, this fucking rocked, didn't it? as expected, this match absolutely ruled. It was phenomenal stuff. I thought it was just another great... Look, I expected the Young Bucks and the Jurassic Express to have a really good match. And this is exactly what they delivered. Some extraordinary sequences with Jurassic Express, who feel like they've been wrestling with one of other. Like, they never stop for the singles run, right? Jack Perry here in this match, he does his best. Ricky Morton throughout the entire match, and the audience, the crowd, so into Jurassic Express and Luchasaurus. These people were really excited to have Luchasaurus back. And the moves are there. The Bucks, of course, creative, in sync. They're so good, always in the right spot, always doing what they need to do. And Nick is so fucking smooth, right? Everything is great. We're doing destroyers. We're doing standing moonsaults. This match ruled. This match was absolutely phenomenal. Ends with the countdown to extinction for the win. I mean, look, this is a 4.5-star match too. Again, another the tag teams, man, on this show were just without fail excellent. Just excellent stuff. It was a crowd pleaser. It was dynamic. It was sound well put together. And the Bucks, as much as their antics sometimes are just like, sometimes they annoy me, but not in the good sense. Like, there's some antics of the Bucks that annoy me the right way. And I'm like, now we're talking. This is fun. And there's others where it's like, okay, you're losing me here. And like the whole being broke stuff and the ATM, whatever that was, the login to their bank account screen. Was that what that was? It's like, look, your bank needs to upgrade their software, brother. They're running it on DOS. Like, what are we doing here? I look at all that, and that's the kind of shit where I'm like, this annoys me. I'm not into this. This is, this is not why I like the Young Bucks. But undeniable, every time they hit the ring, they are just phenomenal. And every time this year, 2025, they're in the ring, they're spinning gold. This has been a phenomenal year for them. 2025 will have been a phenomenal year for the Bucks. And we'll see what happens moving forward with Jurassic Express. But look, hey, this tag team division, it feels great right now. It really, really does feel great. After the match, the Don Callis family shows up. You've got Josh Alexander in jeans, which was a little off-putting. And they beat down on Jurassic Express while the Bucks kind of don't get involved and walk away. And then Kenny Omega's music hits to a big cheer from the crowd. Everyone fucking loves Kenny Omega. And he walks by the Bucks. He says, well, aren't you guys going to do something? And they're like, nah, we're going to pass. So Kenny Omega's like, okay, eat shit. And then he runs to the ring to save Jurassic Express. And he stands in the ring along with the two others. There was a rumor until Kota Ibushi got hurt that Omega and Ibushi were supposed to do a Golden Lovers match against Don Callis guys, which is probably why Omega was used here. And here's the thing, is like this is probably plan C, what they did, because plan B was probably the Golden Lovers tag team stuff, and plan A was probably Omega versus Andrade. So Kenny's presence on the show was essentially cursed. But look, I know he's still got some health issues going on. Like, he's still dealing with stuff. Let's put it that way. Like, I think he is cleared. He's fine, but it's still massive intrusive surgery that he had. It's gonna impact Kenny Omega's overall performance moving forward, right? But look, in this time where Omega and MJF and Ospreay and Swerve are all absent, a guy like Kenny Omega feels even more required than anything else. So if you bring him in, have him do something for the audience, like have a match, have some, there was a time I believe AEW, Tony Khan would have just thrown a match together. He'd be like, okay, Kenny, you versus this guy. But Tony Khan has been scared shitless so hard about not having stories for his matches anymore, because that's been driven into his skull because he spends too much time on Twitter and listening to the wrong people. I think that since he couldn't come up with a story for Kenny Omega on time because all of this happened so quickly, the Kota Ibushi injury and so on and so forth, that he didn't feel confident just giving Kenny a match, which he absolutely could have done without any build. No one would have bitched that Kenny Omega was on the show, but I think there was a time he would have done that, Tony Khan. But that ship has sailed, brother. Jamie Hayter defeated Tekla. Yeah, it was all right. I don't know. I feel like this is a bit of a divisive match. There's a lot of people like, no, man, that rocked. Did it? Like, I thought it was actually, I thought it was a little sloppy. I kind of thought they were a step behind on each other. I don't know. Look, it wasn't terrible again. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. I don't know. I much preferred Statlander versus Storm. This one I felt was underwhelming. I thought there were a lot of spots that a lot of strikes that didn't connect, and this was a match that I would have expected just like both women to go really hard, and instead they were like super duper protecting each other like outrageously. And like, why are we going? Why is the touch so light? I don't know. I wasn't quite into this one, but I think this feud must continue, right? Because Queen Aminata showed up at the end. Like this is going to be somehow tied into the women's blood and guts match, which everyone is thinking is going to happen, right? They're going to do something with this. Yeah. And, I kind of figured Tekla was going to win too. We'll see how this continues to maneuver. But yeah, I thought I thought that we dropped off a really steep cliff here following FTR versus Jet Speed, as we mentioned, that bled in from the pre-show onto the main card, with the crowd just going bananas as the fireworks are going off, the pyro's going off during the match. And I myself, I'm like, I'm sitting there and going, fuck yeah, this rules. And they just kept cranking and cracking. What a great match this was. 4.25 star for me. But they were just like cranking it up. An incredible action between the two. Adored the fucking Midnight Express Jim Cornette finish, where you have the baby faces who absolutely got fucked in this match because of the finish, because of Stokely Hathaway just hanging on to the foot. Referee doesn't see a thing because he's in a position where he can't see Stoke, and he's just counting the 1, 2, 3, and you're like, bullshit. You just let it out. You're like, bullshit. Jet Speed commandeered this match. They were in control. They were doing everything right. And FTR trying to land their shit. Yeah, that's why they had to go to Stokely, because all of their shit, the Powerplex, they couldn't make it work. The fucking Shatter Machine, they couldn't get it to work. Nothing was connecting for them. They were desperate. I love this match. I am not kidding when I tell you FTR is one of the best things in AEW right now. They are so good at this. And Stokely is so good as the shit manager. Well, no, he's a good manager, but the shit heel manager, I guess. He is so good at this. And once again, you've got Speedball and Kevin Knight, who are just cranking up the volume in these big time matches. Fuck yeah. What great get. Are we going to not take a minute here to look back at, well, not here specifically, but we're getting towards the end of the year, slowly but surely. And there's going to have to be some ink spilled in regards to AEW signing Speedball Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight, which have been, without fail, two of the best fucking signings that company has done this entire year. Like, no bullshit, no question about it. If not the two best signings the company made this year. Who else would be up there? I'm just drawing a blank right now. Consistently good on TV most weeks, just having good matches, solid performances, and then when they're on pay-per-view, just crank it up. Oh, it's awesome fucking stuff. Like, it's awesome stuff. So that was the, and then like officially on the pre-show, we had Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale defeat Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. I thought Willow and Megan had something going here. I would dare say I'd like to see more of that. I would dare say more of this, please. Give us some singles matches between Willow and Bayne. But is this also what we're going to do? We're going to do tag teams with Harley and Willow and Megan and Penelope Ford. I mean, Megan and Penelope Ford, of course, they're going to be a tag team. But Harley Cameron and Willow, sure. But man, the story has to be Willow circling back to Mercedes Moné and winning the TBS title off of her, right? It has to be that, right? That's what you do with Willow. Eddie Kingston and Hook defeated the Frat House. They were the TBD. I don't know. Again, just announce it. It's not that big of a deal. I thought it went longer than what it should have been. I think. And I really think AEW missed the opportunity to make Eddie Kingston's return like really special and big. I don't know. That's just me. Then we had, oh my God, we had a tailgate promo with the Costco guys. And they're announcing that they're going to be at Full Gear. And I'm like, this is, you know, let's go F-list celebrities now. Like, these are two guys whose time is completely past. Whatever peak they had is long gone. Now they're just hangers on. It's a little cringe. God bless Trent and Rocky, who did something interesting out of this, but this could all eat shit. I do not care for the Costco guys. Get them off my wrestling as soon as possible. And then the Death Riders defeated the Conglomeration. Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, Pac and Wheeler Yuta versus Orange Cassidy, Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, and Tomohiro Ishii. Well, I guess Roderick Strong is not in the Conglomeration, right? Yeah, I thought that was pretty fun, actually. Fun, crowd-pleasing opener. And again, look, Orange Cassidy back to doing pre-shows, and when it's Orange, yeah. Anyway, not reiterating all of this as I smack my microphone. Oh, and the Facción Ingobernable had words to say to Eddie Kingston and Hook. So that's also a feud that will continue. Unlike this review, which is going to wrap it up, it's going to come to an end. There you have it. WrestleDream 2025, a really good show. And recommendations aplenty. I think all the tag team matches should be seen. I think Kyle Fletcher and Mark Briscoe should be seen. I think the main event, the I Quit match, should be seen. I think Brodito and versus Okada and Takeshita should be seen. There's not much that should not be seen on this show. Go ahead. Watch the whole fucking thing. Do yourself a favor. It's a good time. Yeah, it's not a 3-hour special, but you'll be entertained. You're not going to miss. You're going to be entertained from top to bottom. I'll tell you what. There you go. That's the review.